Good morning, students. I hope all of you are fine today. So let's continue with the chapter which we have started earlier, that is sound, students. Now, today we will continue with the topic of characteristics of sounds. Students, as we know that we can recognize different voices of different people, okay? So, the sound which is different from others, they are produced by vibrations. Now, how can we distinguish the sound with the other different sounds? Okay, these can be determined by the characteristics of sound. They are loudness, pitch, and quality. So, what do you mean by loudness, students? It refers to how strong the sound it strikes our ears. Okay, so this mainly depends upon the amplitude of the vibration. That means it will be directly proportional to the square of the amplitude of vibration. All right, so it means if the amplitude is getting increased to twice or thrice, then loudness will increase to 4 times or it will increase to 9 times. Okay, so we can say that it is a degree of sensation which is produced in the air, okay, in the ear. All right, so the sensation which is produced in the ear, it distinguishes between the sound which is a type of a loud or a faint sound. So with the help of this we can determine the loudness of the sound. All right, now the loudness of the sound can be expressed in a unit which is called as decibel. So students, just remember this, that above 80 decibel, which is denoted as small d and capital B, the sound becomes physically painful, students. Now the next characteristic is pitch. So it is a characteristic of sound, students, which enables to distinguish a sharp sound from a dull sound. That is why with the help of which we can differentiate the voice of a child or of a woman from that of a man, because the voice of child or woman is higher, that is the pitch of woman or child is higher than that of a man. All right, so students, for example, if we see a drum which vibrates with a low frequency, whereas if you blow a whistle, it will vibrate with a high frequency. So thus we can say the drum produces a low pitch sound, whereas a whistle produces a high pitch sound. So pitch of a sound depends on the frequency of vibration, that means number of vibrations taken place in one single second. So greater the frequency of a sound, higher will be the pitch of the sound, students. Okay, so the object which will produce a higher frequency will be having a higher pitch, or you can say will be shriller, and the object will produce a lower frequency, that object will be of lower pitch or will be less shriller. So students, in the next page there is a difference between loudness and pitch, so read it very carefully. Okay, so the next characteristic is quality. So it enables or it determines us to distinguish between the musical notes which is created or which is produced by different musical instruments, okay, even though they can be of same pitch or same loudness. So the instruments which is having a different sound quality because the sound waves produced of different shapes. So this sound quality is called as timbre, students. So sounds which are produced by a source where it vibrates at a certain frequency. So students, what happens that most of the objects that produces sound, they vibrate at different frequencies at the same time. But in each time, the frequency produces by a sound will be having a specific amount of pitch. So we can say that quality of a sound depends on the source of sound, that is depends on the object, okay, which is coming from. Now students, we will determine the sound produced by musical instruments. See, we hear lot of sounds every day because of the collection of sounds. So a musical sound is known as tone, students. Tone, okay? So if we strike a tuning fork, then it will give a tone which will be a musical sound, but it is of a single frequency. On the other hand, if you play a note on a trumpet or a violin, then there will be a combination of main frequencies with the other tones. So in this way, each musical instrument has their own characteristic of sound. So what are the instruments which are categorized as? There are three types of instruments. Number one is the string instruments, for example guitar, violin, sitar, etc. Next one is the wind instruments, which can be flute, horn, etc. And third will be of membrane or plate instruments, which is called as example of tabla, drum, etc. students. Now there is another one instrument which is called jal tarang. It is a plate type instrument which is used in ancient times. It can be rarely seen or you can hear, even though the gentle tinkle of its unique sound, which is quite pleasing. That means if you just vibrate this instrument very gently, then it will produce a pleasing or a comfortable sound. So Jal Tarang, it originally means waves in water. That is why it is called as so, because we know that water is an important factor for producing music with the help of this instrument, students. Now, the most important part is how sound is produced in human beings. So, see students, in human beings, the sound which is produced by humans, okay, that is known as voice box, or you can simply call it as larynx. So larynx is situated at the neck of the upper part of the windpipe. Now if you want to just feel the voice box, you just put your fingers on the throat, okay, and you will find there will be a hard bumping which will moves when you swallow any kind of a food. So this is called as larynx. So in larynx, students, there are two vocal cords, okay, where the ligaments stretches across it, where the air passes through them, okay. So when the air is forced through the slit of the vocal cords, then they will produce a vibration and it will produce sound. So when the vocal cords are tight, that is, then the voice box becomes thin and it produces high frequency. But when the vocal cords are loose, then the voice box becomes thick and it produces low frequency. So in this way, students, the larynx, that is the voice box, produces sound. Now students, the next part is how we can hear the sound. We can hear something when the vibration is occurring. That is, we are catching the vibrations or we are sensing the vibrations through the air. So these vibrations, students, enters into our outer ear and it finally travels into the canal, okay, which is at the end, and it is of thin stretch membrane which is called as eardrum. Now sound vibrations causes eardrum to oscillate. Now, the eardrum which is attached to our ear, it has three tiny bones. The names of the bones are hammer, anvil and stirrup. Now these three bones vibrate when the eardrum vibrates and they just amplify, that means they just modify the sound which is coming through vibrations before it is picked up to the auditory nerve and finally it is sent to the brain. So now we will discuss about the three different parts of human art which work together to collect the sound and it send them to the brain. First one is the outer ear, students. The outer ear, it is visible to us because it is at the side of our head and which is known as auricle or pinna. Now it is made up of a cartilage, tough cartilage, okay, which is covered by our skin. Now the function of pinna is to collect different kinds of sounds and it sends them directly to the ear canal, which is connected to the middle ear. Now the pinna has an ear lobe, okay, you can see in the picture, which is an ear lobe. Now it is the part which individuals peers to wear earrings, okay, especially women, and nowadays men also wear some kind of earrings. So the hollow passage that leads to the eardrum, they are known as ear canal, which is also a part of the outer ear. Now the next part is the middle ear. It is an air-filled hollow space, okay, which is a size of a chickpea. Now it amplifies, that means it expands the sound vibrations coming from the eardrum and directly sends them to the inner ear. Now the middle ear is separated from the outer ear by the eardrum. Now the middle ear has three bones, just we have read about. They are hammer, anvil and stirrup. Now these bones are connected together so that they can form a chain, and when the vibration occurs and when the vibration enters into the ear, then these three bones vibrates. And the third part is the inner ear. This inner ear consists of two small or tiny organs which is called as cochlea and the semicircular canals. Okay, it contains some kind of a fluid. Now students, the cochlea, it converts the vibration which is coming from the middle ear into electrical impulses. Okay, because whatever information is sent to the brain, it is sent by converting the information into electrical impulses, okay, electrical charges, all right, and it sends to the brain with the help of cochlea, that is the fluid, which is also known as auditory nerve. Okay, so auditory nerve helps to reach the information which is coming from the cochlea to the brain. Now what will happen, the brain will receive all the impulses and it will detect, and finally it tells us or it helps us to hear what kind of a sound we are actually listening. Now the next topic is the audible and inaudible sounds. Audible sound is that when a human being can hear, while inaudible sound is that which the human beings cannot hear. So the human ear can hear the sound lies between frequency of 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz, but the inaudible sound is less than that of 20,000 frequency, or it can be of more than 20,000 frequency. So the frequencies which is less than 20 hertz, this is called as infrasonic sound. Now these sounds produces by animals like rhinoceros, elephants, whales, etc. But the sound which is of more than 20,000 hertz frequency, they are called as ultrasonic sound. Dolphins, bats, they produces ultrasonic sounds. Students, it's a very important fact that dogs can hear up to 25,000 hertz. But in case of animals like bats, monkeys, leopards, they can also hear ultrasonic sounds. So the police uses high frequencies whistles which dogs can hear, but humans cannot hear these kind of sound, students. Now the next topic is the noise and music. Now students, there are some kind of noise which are unpleasant and which are loud. They are called as noise. For example, big machines operating in a factory, or the loudspeakers during functions, motorbikes, construction working, they are all examples of noise. So noise also can lead to some health problems like, okay, so but in case of pleasant musical soft sounds, they are called as music. Okay, for example, the instruments like piano, sitar, they produce a pleasant sound. So music is not only soothing, student, is not only comfortable, but actually it is a cure of number of ailments. But student, if the musical sound becomes very loud, then it would become, or it would convert into noise. So then it leads to noise pollution. That means if unwanted sounds or excessive presence of sounds creating in the environment, then it will produce noise. For example, bursting of crackers, automobiles running, industries, they're operating some huge machines, air traffic, etc. See students, air conditioners, desert coolers, television running at high volumes, these also contribute to noise pollution. So what are the effects of the noise pollution? It will create some high blood pressure, it will create anxiety, then person cannot concentrate on their work because of the loss, okay, and also lack of sleep. So how we can control the noise pollution? First of all, we need to penalize, or the police needs to penalize the vehicles which exceeds the noise limits. We need to use, or we need to restrict the use of loudspeakers, especially in public places. Factories and industries should not operate in residential areas or in crowded areas. We need to plant more and more number of trees on the roadsides and around, so that buildings to cut down the sounds reaching the residents. Okay, because if you just cut down the trees and if you build the buildings, then it will raise the noise. Okay, and last but not the least, we need to use some silences devices for transport vehicles, industrial machines, so that noise pollution can be prevented and can be measured properly. Okay, so students, our chapter is completed here. So I have uploaded all the question answers through the PDF. So go through the PDF very carefully, read all the question answers very carefully, and try to memorize and try to analyze what is saying in, or what are the details present in this chapter.